Hi, good afternoon, everybody. We are just on the hour, so going to give it a few moments just to let everybody connect from previous calls and things. But nice to see so many of you already so far today. Those that are just joining, we're just going to give it a few moments just to let people connect before we make a start. Okay, well, we've got quite a bit to go through, so we'll make a little start and people can kind of connect us as we go through. So hi everybody, and welcome to our latest Industry Insider that we have today with Vidmob, where we're going to be diving into the wonderful world of AI and how you're able to use this to your marketing advantage. Very happy to have you all joining us live this afternoon. For those of you that maybe don't know me, I'm Lauren Wakefield. I'm the Marketing and Communications Director at IAB Europe and have the pleasure of hosting this event for you today. Just to give you a little bit more of a background on our Industry Insider series. So this format was created a couple of years ago now to really help provide real learnings and insights from industry leading companies, which is exactly what we're going to be doing in the session today. So leading the charge today, we're going to start off with Jeremiah Zinger, who's the Senior Partner Manager at Vidmob. He's going to walk us through the techniques that are available to you to leverage AI for marketing success. We're then going to be joined by Anthony Lummy, who's the VP EMEA Client Partnerships at Vidmob, and Andrew Rajanathan, who's the Media and ROI Lead EMEA for Johnson&Johnson. They're going to have a nice fireside chat where they're going to share some real world examples of how companies are harnessing the power of AI to charge their creativity and drive exceptional performance. And then to round everything up, they'll introduce Jennifer Hay, who's the client partner of Vidmob, and she's just going to share some of the key takeaways with us all. But I think it's going to be a really good hour and a good session today, and something we're really interested to hear more about at IAB Europe. Just before I hand over to Jeremiah, a little bit of housekeeping. So on the interface of the screen, you should be able to see that there's a Q&A box. We're going to have a Q&A at the end of the session. So any questions that you have throughout the content today, just pop them in that Q&A box, and then we'll try and address as many of them as we can at the end. As with all our events, it is live, so we really do encourage you to answer any questions that you have for our speakers today, and I'm sure they'll be happy to address them for you. We're also recording the session, so we'll make sure that we follow up with the recording with you all afterwards as well. But you can have enough of hearing from me. Let's hand over to Jeremiah, who's going to kick us off with his presentation, and I'll stop sharing my screen as well.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Let me see here. Let's do this and that, and that, and this, and this. All right, 1 second here. Okay, so I will trust if we are not all good, somebody will let me know. But thank you, and we've already gone through introductions, but you know, it's really sort of exciting to be here, and really a privilege for me to be able to talk to you through this topic today. This is very exciting for me. You know, I've been working with the platforms now for many years, and while the sort of greater market is really now just sort of talking about, you know, AI. I've seen this trending, and we've been talking about AI with the likes of, you know, Meta and Amazon and Google for many years now. So for me, this is not a new conversation. It's a very exciting conversation that we're actually that's getting traction, and I'm very excited to be here today. I think it was back in 2017 or 2018, Google announced that, I think it was in all hands that, you know, we're now an AI company, and nobody really knew kind of what that meant. But sort of fast forward to, you know, 5-6 years later, you know, some of our team was able to this slide here, was able to spend time at Cannes last week. And much of the content, as you can imagine, was really focused around sort of AI, creative effectiveness, machine learning. And in particular, there was a session with the VP of marketing at Adobe. And there were two very simple things about AI and marketing from that session that really resonated with me. So the first one was, very simply, as a marketer, you need to be able to surface insights faster and much faster than you probably are today, which I think we can all agree with. And then the second was, and this is kind of around the generative piece, is that for the immediate future, no matter what AI developments there are, you still need human ingenuity. And, that certainly lines up where we see sort of humans in this process as well. So aligned with what we hear from clients, aligned with sort of what we see in market, and this is what we believe to be the case today. And machine learning has been, and AI has been a part of our business for many years. So I'm really actually energized by all of the recent announcements, and I'm sure that you're seeing this as well. You suddenly have hundreds of millions of people really paying attention to how AI can help them in their life, in their business. And, and I don't really think it's an exaggeration to say that we've kind of reached a tipping point, and the world will probably never be the same. Everything that is invented or developed or kind of iterated on moving forward will probably on some level be supported by AI. And I think it's helpful to kind of understand like why we're seeing this. And there's sort of four main points or more main takeaways, but the first is really data explosion. We've never seen so much data. We've never seen so much data digitized. And then sort of on top of that, we're all so much more connected as people, as machines, as the Internet of Things and all the other devices out there in the world. There's really never been more connections between all of these points of data. So that leads us to compute power, which, as this continues to kind of drop in cost dramatically, we're now able to make sense of all this data and create outcomes. And it's more inexpensive to do this than ever before. And then sort of finally, there's, I think, over the past 5-10 years, there's been a lot of really great and focused research. And then that's led to sort of impactful product announcements and breakthroughs in the recent times. So it's certainly clear to us, that adopters of AI are moving ahead, and without it, we think that brands are really going to struggle to automate repetitive tasks, analyze data, predict behaviors, audiences, and really be able to move in lockstep with all of your partners and gain a competitive advantage over those sort of slower adopters. And, now there's hundreds of these tools, the kind of DALL-E 2s and Midjourneys, which, were only those are the only ones that were being talked about, just a few months ago. But now these are just sort of one of many offerings that are out there in market. But I think for the purpose of what we're doing here today is, trying to zero in a little bit and how will this technology be used for creative purposes, or more importantly, to really understand, what ads are working and why, so that, you as marketers can ultimately make the most out of your advertising budget. And I just want to share this kind of a couple of examples, that probably you've seen or you may be experiencing yourself as you're kind of playing around with these tools. And the first one's here really is just an example of a really simple prompt. And, create me an ad for a specific platform format, include my product, have the model face the camera, and, poof, you've got some assets that you can start working with from many of these tools. And this is the second one, sort of kind of a more pedestrian use case, but you already have a particular piece of creative and you might want to repurpose it for another platform, which is in a different format or whatever. And again, just by asking the tool to do that, we're seeing that you now have the ability to repurpose that content and sort of a click of a button. So with all of these kinds of offerings, those types of sort of creative challenges, those are going to be a thing of the past. And you're already seeing these sort of be present in some of the platform tools today. Think about Video Creation Kit or something from a Meta. These are already available to you, but at scale, these are going to sort of help these problems of creative creation go away. And I think it's important to kind of take us back here for a second, which really check in on the dynamics around where creative is today. And there's been kind of this historically ongoing disconnect between creative and media teams. And, and this further widens, we think, by, media teams running AI-driven algorithms that put more and more pressures on the creative teams. And this is at a time when budgets are obviously under a large amount of pressure. And this has all been exacerbated by the proliferation of channels and new and changing formats. And, so many of our clients actually, tell us that they really have to start using creative as a lever or creative as a tool to drive marketing performance. But connecting this creative investment to the impact, on the business is really hard. And especially because it's probably not an exaggeration to say that, creative leaders are defending budgets, they're defending sort of team overhead, and in some cases, they're really defending their, very existence in the company. So kind of pivoting to today, even with all of the incredible technology advances, that we see, there are a few things that remain very much true for enterprise marketers. First of all, we see that they really still want to shape and nurture, strong and recognizable brand that people out there in the world can really trust and relate to. And then I think the second piece is they want to understand the best ways to deploy the media budget. And of course, they want to understand as best as possible, did the spend work? They want to prove it. They want to measure it. And for as long as advertising's been around, really, they'd like to understand, why the ad worked. And the question really becomes, for us in a world of content abundance, how will your ad stand out? How will you know what's actually driving your performance? And kind of the more importantly, why? So I want to call out tests for a second. In these examples, you can kind of see how identifying specific creative elements such as contrast in this example can drive ad performance. Or, if we look at another one, it's, understanding the impact of a functional message versus an emotional message. And as I think as it relates to testing, the last 20 years of digital advertising have definitely helped us understand what worked or what the winner was, but what we've really fallen short of or not made very little progress on is why that particular asset was the winner. And, we, Vidmob, really exist to change that. So what are sort of some of the solutions? I think it starts with, for many years, the platforms, and you all sort of see this, have used machine learning and AI for media optimization. So, finding the right users for a given product or identifying, the users on a particular platform that are most likely to engage in a video ad or, convert via a direct response ad, and really balancing that understanding with what's going on, to the user in the moment, that they're sitting there scrolling for half an hour, or, that this user in particular just simply likes to pick up the phone and respond to a notification that the platform may have sent. So they've used machine learning and AI for the longest time to really try to make these decisions fast in order to ultimately provide maximum value, both to the end user as well as to the marketer. Now, all this AI is pushing out towards the marketer and sort of manifesting in things like, services they want to help you with, and, making it easier to spend your media dollars. And well, the really important piece here is for the platforms is the data. Every single ad creative or dollar spent is an opportunity for them to really learn, in the context, to really learn about, what's happening. So in the context of sort of this webinar, you're getting asked to provide more and more creative to fuel this learning and this performance. And I think the really big point here is that, doing this, you're doing this sort of essentially flying blind. Here are the assets, but again, you don't know why one worked and another one didn't. So there's this very big difference between being told what creative worked best and then understanding why it worked best. And, the funny part is this is in a time when you look at platforms like Meta, they're telling us that creative is the most important factor in delivery optimization. There's nothing else as important as getting the creative right. And they quantify this at, I think it's 56%, but other platforms like Google and Nielsen, have even higher figures here. So, Vidmob really believes deeply that every marketer should have access to this creative element level data. And so what we're doing is, and this is sort of the slide you're seeing here, is we're using our computer vision process, proprietary tech stack that, we're able to look inside the static display image or video to understand how creative elements relate to the performance that is expected from a campaign. So this data can be used not only to really understand, what's going on inside the creative across campaigns and, and all the different digital platforms and markets and regions, but it can also be used to score all of these against platform best practices or brand mandatories, that have been developed over time using data. You can extend this too. You can extend this use to really not only understand what creative elements have helped to hurt the campaign, and then the really big piece here is the action piece, and we look at this as the create piece. So you have all of these data points, and then how do you take action on this? Because at the end of the day, that's where the value is ultimately realized. I think the anecdote is, you're sick and you go to the doctor, and the doctor gives you a diagnosis, tells you what's wrong, gives you a prescription, and you walk out the door, you put the prescription in your pocket, you never get it filled. What's the point? So the good news is that taking action not only leads to media value, but in the world of AI, it starts to develop this building of a rich sort of data trove that can be used not just to narrow the aperture, or constrain this list of sort of creative requirements, but using the data as a way to really inspire, write new creative stories leveraging that data. And this is, I think, a really important point, because with all the focus on the tools themselves, the reality is they're only as good. And I think the results that you're going to get from them are only as sort of rich and differentiated as the data that the tool is trained on. And we've all heard, and you've all heard a lot about, ChatGPT in this regard, but, the data that's supporting creative and novel and authentic ways where, AI alone cannot. And this cycle of sort of learning and improving, it goes way beyond creative effectiveness, which I think is obviously top of mind for all of us. But I think these tools are going to be able to help us, learn other truths about our audiences, segments within them, what drives them. Are they actually one big sort of homogenous group? Or, what can be learned from all these signals? Or, how do they behave differently on different platforms and channels? And, and how can their responses ultimately inform maybe, broader product roadmaps, outside of that core marketing use case? So I already mentioned sort of taking the action to get value from AI. I think that's absolutely key. And when we can get even more of this value, when we train and interact with the data, it's like giving an algorithm feedback. For example, the driver of performance, the machine might have pulled kind of a needle out of a haystack and told you that, the color burnt orange is associated with increased conversion rate for your campaign. But in fact, having a human look at it, it's coffee with cream. That's what's in the asset. That's what's driving performance. And that's just one example. So the power here is not to really just understand, what is there, but to use humans to understand the why, the difference, and the why behind the difference, and then kind of ultimately feed that back into the system to create an even more positive upward cycle. And we finally see enterprise marketers leveraging these platform tools and capabilities differently. Now they're definitely going to leverage them for media buying because they're already built into that experience. But we really believe that they'll navigate a little bit more careful path rather than just simply handing over brand assets to the machines. And I think we believe that the more valuable the brand is to the business and their sales outcomes, the more they'll want to be involved in this kind of AI-driven process, ultimately finding, more limited ways to use AI tools effectively while still staying true to values and messaging using people. So, we really believe that to stay relevant, marketers need to become experts in using these AI tools, but just importantly, they need to become experts in the analytics. I think, I think it's probably an old adage at this point, but, AI is not going to take your job, but somebody using AI better than you, probably will. So we believe that AI does present a massive opportunity, and we really think that soon we're kind of going to be in a world of haves and have-nots. And brands who kind of fail to adopt these tools will be paying a lot more for media, getting significantly reduced results from that kind of more expensive spend. So we really believe it'll be kind of increasingly hard for people to compete. And as I mentioned earlier, at Vidmob, we've been using AI and machine learning technology for a little over 5 years. And our goal ultimately is to empower marketers to produce more effective creative. We use a topic or a technology, called computer vision. And this really analyzes every single creative element in a piece of creative. And we're building a rich data set of what's actually happening, when our clients are running in their campaigns. So we take that data set, kind of evaluate it against a wealth of, first party and third party performance information. And we start to get this really very clear understanding of what's actually influencing a viewer and what the response is to creative. And, and our goal with all of this and all of these advances and, and using technology is to really give our clients the best possible grasp of the steps they can take to drive more effective creative. So, what we found is that sort of regardless of where clients are on their journey and their creative journey, there's an opportunity to leverage AI and machine learning, for significant KPI improvement, whether it's kind of just getting started and looking to adopt best practices for the preferred platform or channel, or, if they're looking to capitalize on trends to, to stay relevant in their industry or brand, or whether they're really specifically, building creative based on audience insights. We think that these tools can help transform, a marketing team's impact. And we apply it in kind of 2 key solutions. And the first is a creative scoring tool that allows clients to consistently and reliably measure campaign creative against published platform and industry best practices that are most relevant to them, the goals of the marketing team. It's very simple. It's a turnkey solution. It can be turned on today, and it immediately starts to help up level. And what we see when clients use this is, and they follow these recommendations, is that, the results are pretty transformative. This is a slide from a recent client of ours that, just by adopting the kind of published best practices of the platforms and placements, they're seeing huge lifts in attributable sales. And, to kind of put it simply, running more effective creative is driving real sales increases for their business. And we think this is every marketer's dream. So in terms of using AI today, this is the easiest way to get started. And, for some of our more sophisticated clients, that's not enough. This is, basic best practice adherence is really just a starting point, sort of table stakes. So we developed a product that goes a step further and allows us to really individually evaluate how specific creative decisions impact campaign performance and spend efficiency. So using creative analytics, a marketer receives actionable insights about what's making a piece of creative work or not work. And, and then over time, this is what we're really excited about. We're helping these clients build in-depth, scalable knowledge of the different creative attributes and, and using those to then inform, future performance and future campaigns. And this is sort of manifested in the slide you see here. So, we realized in this sort of recent campaign for a client that, between sort of checking all the boxes for best practices and making sure that everything adhered to platform norms, we also took specific industry insights and specific insights from the brands from the brand after running them through the analytics. And the results of the campaign, obviously, it's a fantastic outcome. But what we were really able to do is really start to set the stage for this sort of brand specific knowledge and this trove of insights that we're now able to start developing a library and provide them with a differentiated advantage for the future, and how working with teams to take advantage of these types of sort of specific insights are I think what we're most excited about. And I'm excited to now talk to Anthony and Andrew and hear how this is sort of done in practical application and how clients are using this. So that was a lot of me. So I'm going to hand it over to Anthony to have a conversation that I think you'll enjoy.
Thank you, Jay-Z, for this very good summary of what AI brings to marketing these days. And when discussing with the IAB about this webinar, we thought rather than giving a very theoretical perspective, we'd love to bring someone in the room that is actually already using AI for many years at scale. That means cross market, cross brands. So someone that knows what he's talking about. And this is Andrew Rajanathan, who is the head of media and ROI for Kenvue in EMEA. Kenvue, for those who do not know what that company stands for, used to be called Johnson&Johnson. This is they rebranded earlier this year. It's the company owning brands such as Neutrogena, Tylenol, Band-Aid, you name it. And without further ado, I will ask Andrew to introduce himself, and then I'm going to ask him a few questions. Cool. Andrew, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do at Kenvue.
Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate the kind words and the introduction. So my name is Andrew. I look after all things media, Power Partners and JBP's media strategy for Kenvue, formerly Johnson&Johnson Consumer Healthcare, for the EMEA region. My career started off, funnily enough, as a journalist when I was at university. I thought that was going to be a very real ambition, and then Lehman Brothers collapsed and the world changed basically forever, a bit like now. And I had to make a pretty sharp pivot, and I ended up working in media agencies for the first 10 years of my career, building trading desks, doing investment, working largely on FMCG brands, Hollywood studios, and direct response clients like Amex and like William Hill. And now I'm in a client-side role, managing our media agency and managing all the key partners that help us drive success through media. And Vidmob is, a preferred partner of ours.
Very cool. So this confirms what I was saying, that we've got someone who knows what he's talking about when it comes to media and leveraging media to drive growth for brands. But tell us a little bit more about your journey in using AI at scale within Kenvue, and yeah, let's start with the journey and what you can share with us.
So the big thing that has changed in the last 10 years is we've gone from, a pretty simple media landscape where it's broadcast channels, traditional TV, to, very expansive, very ever-changing environment, especially with the digital platform. So growth of Google search, YouTube, Meta, all the other walled gardens, has meant more and more dollars have flowed into all of these channels. And that has meant the requirements around creative change. So instead of, everything being around a 30-second TV spot, this is now around multiple different formats, multiple different channels, multiple different capabilities to reach customers, but reach them in a very creative way to deliver your message for your brand that drives business outcomes. So for us, the way that we've worked with AI and we've worked with creative is, working with Vidmob, on making sure that we're building feed fit creative for Meta or platform agnostic creative that works in the feed. And what we understand as any business in our category, creative is the biggest driver or drag on ROI and business impact, which we measure by sales growth. So for us, the way we work with AI and creative products, especially like Vidmob, and they're a key partner of ours, is making sure that we can build multiple creators, multiple formats at scale very quickly, so we can be a lot more nimble when it comes to things like testing, piloting, quickly swapping creative in and out, and then helping creative become a big driver of ROI and not something that gets thought of at the end. And for us, that's very, very important as we become a standalone company. We have a lot of power with the brands, all the brands that we have. I think most people on this call would agree. We asked a random person on the road, have you heard of Listerine? Have you heard of J Baby? Have you heard of Aveeno? I think most people would say yes. But the way we show up on all of these digital platforms, we need a solution that can deliver scale And with all the innovation that's coming from AI, creative is a very, very important piece, especially with all the trends and all the buzz around generative AI.
Indeed, indeed, a lot of buzz, and you guys are embraced the data side also of what a tool like Vidmob is bringing. Can you tell us a little bit more how you do this, and maybe some results that you have seen in leveraging the data and creative analytics?
Yeah, sure, I can talk about that. So let me talk about my experience. Let me talk a little bit about my experience to date. We have a problem in digital because it's grown so quickly. What ends up happening is by the time you get to your agency, the creative lands with the media buyer and they launch the creative. And the problem is when you launch the creative, you have a media buyer who has to launch that creative, and that creative may not be necessarily fit for the feed environment. So when that's not fit for the feed environment, we have a problem because it impacts the ROI. So the way we do things now, and this is integrated into our workflow, so it's not about integrating our agency system or partners, it's about workflow. We have to make sure that all creative gets scored and vetted by the Vidmob assessment tool, and that will neatly fit in with our DAM. So DAM stands for Digital Asset Manager. That's where we house all of our creative. So our brand teams know we brief a creative AOR, they send the creative, that creative gets scored. Once that creative gets scored, we know, okay, is it passing, you know, the brilliant basics of creative based on what the Vidmob tool does? If yes, you proceed, run the campaign. If no, we work with Vidmob and we have, you know, an agreement in place where we have their support from their teams to amend, edit, recreate creative so that it fits for the feed environment. That way, on both sides, we have a firm process in place that one supports and protects our brands as they launch their campaigns and get them on air and they show up across all of the different environments that we invest in. I think that's really, really important. And we've driven some really, really strong results globally for quite a few of our brands in terms of the brand uplift that we're seeing, the difference in format. So, you know, things like your estimated ad recall, the increase in your view rates, and like all of the campaign items that we look at specifically from a creative point of view. And then when it comes to the MMM, we're seeing like some improvements year over year. We're not quite perfect, but we are moving and trending in the right direction.
That's pretty cool that you're also able to feed your MMM results with creative data, thanks to the work we do together. And that's pioneering what's coming. And actually, I would love to ask you, like, what do you see as the future of AI, and with maybe generative AI, and when it comes to creative effectiveness, what do you see as the future is going to look like?
I think that, so let's talk about all these tools. So I recommend everyone on this call look at things like ChatGPT, Playground AI, Midjourney. Like, I mess around with these tools just to see, like, can I break this thing? Like, where does it stop kind of not making sense? And I think it's very important people start playing with them. I think what's a curiosity of mine, which I don't know, is if you create an image or an asset in one of these products, who owns the rights to that image? So if I, you know, my favorite park in London is Primrose Hill. If I make an image that is, you know, a dog playing in Primrose Hill, do I own that image because I created that image or I rendered that image in the tool? Does the tool own the image? Does the company that built the tool own the image? Who owns the image? And then if I make an image in those environments, and it's around my brand and I've put some of my brand IP in there, whether it's my color, my font, my logo, or whatever, does the brand own that image? You know, who is the true owner? So the provenance actually becomes an interesting problem. And, you know, for a business like Getty Images, which is in the business of images, you know, it's a problem for them as well. So that's quite an interesting quandary that I don't think anyone's really understood yet. But nevertheless, once technology and tools get out of the box, you can't really put it back in. And what I do think is going to happen is it is going to accelerate people's career and skill development, no matter how good or bad their baseline is. So you won't need someone who has spent years and years mastering Photoshop or shooting video to create an asset. You will be able to use these tools, and these tools will be able to scrape training data from across the web or any other source that you upload and train the model in. So that's also quite interesting. You know, the ownership, the end ownership, who owns the model, that is quite interesting. And it's, you know, we've had the NFT buzz last year around, you know, people creating images and selling them, and it was probably a bit of a bubble then, but there was a kernel of truth in that as well that I can see coming back full circle with generative AI, because you're effectively saying, right, I'm going to type in some text, it's going to create an image. Now, where does the ownership lie with that? And that becomes probably a knotty problem, and not just for advertisers, but I can imagine, you know, for musicians or any other creative endeavor, that is an unanswered question right now.
All of these things indeed become easier, but what's really critical is being able to tell the machine what it needs to do. And so meaning you need to have performance or creative effectiveness data. Otherwise, you will create just another piece of content, rather than creating a piece of content that is going to drive the impact that you're looking for. So whether you're trying to drive online sales, or you try to drive as recall, purchase intent, things like so.
You know, and we're doing a lot of work around the science of brand growth, and, you know, moving our company towards that model of that one company philosophy around media. You know, as you know, within that literature, which does work, especially for our category, you know, there's a concept around distinctive assets. When we work with you guys, we're working on a distinctive assets work stream. You know, what does our creative look like when we're consistent with the message across all the touch points, and how do we measure the business impact of when we get that right, plus when we get it wrong, so we know what, not just what to do, but not what not to do as well.
That's pretty cool. And another challenge part of all of these changes that are happening is, how do you bring your agencies in that journey? Because I know you were really good at putting together creative and media, like making sure that you're not thinking in silo. And now with all of these new opportunities, new set of data coming from AI tools, what do you see as the challenge or the opportunity to unlock even more creativity with your agency partners?
I think it comes down to the editing process. So, and I'll give you an example, right? When you launch a campaign, you get real-time data because we're in a digital world. Instead of you seeing something in real time when the campaign is on air and in flight, instead of having to go back to an AOR and then the AOR has to manually go and edit, there will be tools that will allow anyone who's not a creative to edit and still stay within the parameters of the brand's distinctive assets. And I think that's exciting, because things get quicker and slicker and don't slow down, and you can get to, you know, your ideal scenario or ideal state with a campaign. So there's no, oh, someone has to pause the campaign or pull the creative down and then get it edited and then wait and then relaunch. All of that should technically shrink, and ultimately, as these tools get better and faster, go away. You look at all of the Adobe update, you know, for a tool that you know is very much a craft tool, they are going to make that so much more easier and more accessible, more or less to anyone. And then that essentially will probably flatten the cost, or if it doesn't flatten the cost, it makes the cost more justifiable, because you're upskilling just any person, even who's a non, you know, technical creative. So I think that's quite exciting. And I think that's quite interesting as well.
It is indeed. And I know we're going to run out of time, but what I find really fascinating in talking with you and your team is that it's obvious that you've been testing. You've been testing all of the tools. You're taking also the data that we provide to you, and you try to see like where does it fit? How can it help your internal models? Where are we able to drive your ROI? Can we build new connections so that you have a better understanding of creative impact? So that was the purpose of today. We don't want to give away all of your secrets, but we really wanted to show people that there are people out there that are not only talking about AI, or AI is not only a buzzword, but companies are actually using it day in, day out, because you guys use it actually on a daily basis. We work on you're using our tool several hundreds of times per month. So that was the purpose. Do you want to say a closing remark, Andrew? Or...
So for me, my whole thing is around everyone should be looking at these AI tools. Just download them, try them out, see what it can do, try and break the thing, you know, by like typing in like nonsense to see where the limits are. I don't think that they are as powerful as everyone thinks, but I think they provide a kernel of truth or a direction for where technology is going to end up going. I don't have any grand predictions, but I do think it's really important that you just try out new tools and technology, because fundamentally, even if it looks a bit amateurish or a toy, you know, one day toys become very real and powerful things.
Right. And when that's the message I see, and the shift we're seeing in the last 3 months is that we were like working together with a few people around you, and now more and more people cross markets, cross brands are really like rolling up the sleeves and getting into into the tool, because things are moving extremely fast. And if you don't do it now, probably in 6 months, it will be harder to catch up on product capabilities and all of these opportunities. Thank you. Thanks again, Andrew. I know you have to jump to another meeting, so thanks for being with us. And I will transition to Jennifer Hay, who is a client partner at Vidmob, and she is going to give us the 5 AI-driven consideration that everybody needs to remember at the end of this webinar.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Jennifer Hay, and I'm client partner at Vidmob. And my role is to support global FMCG and beauty brands in their creative transformation. So helping them first understand the platform best practices. This is seen as the first step, and then create a frame to improve adherence to brand guidelines, and finally increase the effectiveness of their content. So as you can imagine, there are some advertisers, some brands like Kenvue that are already a step ahead, but it is actually a journey for all of us. So today I have the pleasure of wrapping up this session by sharing 5 key takeaways on how to use AI to drive your decisions as a marketer. So as Andrew from Kenvue mentioned, the challenges for marketers have changed drastically. During the last decade, the increase of platforms, apps, and formats have put marketers in a constant state of content shortage. So until generative AI came along, all the discussions were more around how do I make sure I scale, I create enough content to be able to be on all platforms, make sure I have the right content, enough content to be able to avoid viewers fatigue, audience fatigue. Now, with a simple click, you've all understood that it is easier to create content, And most marketers are able to create enough content, but not able to support it on the media side. So the question we're now facing is not how do I create this content? It's more how do I know what content to make to drive business and effectiveness? So the first key takeaway we would like to give is to look beyond generative AI. So generative AI is for sure transformative to the creative development process, but it has led to commoditizing creativity and a race to lower costs. So in the quest for cheaper, faster, better, generative AI on its own only tackles the first two. And while the integration of generative AI tool has become a basic essential for a marketing organization success, it is the brands that actually crack the code on effectiveness who will have a sustainable, meaningful advantage over the rest. So it is AI-driven creative effectiveness that will truly be the game changer for business impact. And the marketers that have been trained on AI's creative capabilities and will know how to write a productive prompt will win in the end. Second advice is to make sure you incorporate data into the creative process. So now that your teams will have reduced their time spent making different versions of creatives for different platforms, they should really focus on testing and learning about what types of creative elements are most effective for each platform. So getting access to creative effectiveness data across every touch point will set the stage for a more analytical, iterative creative process. And this leads to our third key takeaway is you make sure you apply the right data. So data that will help you understand the why. So creative effectiveness solution, they require the matching of two key ingredients, so creative data and media performance. Before AI, you could only rely you cannot rely on media performance. You knew whether an ad performed or not, but you wouldn't understand why. So ad hoc solutions were put in place like A/B testing, manual creative reviews, for example, pre-testing like eye tracking. They've all tried to fill the gap on creative data, but rarely could match creative decisions to performance metrics. Today's AI capabilities in recognition and machine learning have unlocked scalable, repeatable, and reliable ways to break the creative data in ads and match it to performance metrics, unlocking significant effectiveness impact. So, for example, now we can understand which context, which music viewers react to, and this can help you create higher quality content by making sure your audience is entertained and responsive to your ads. Fourth advice is really to bring data and humans together. So while AI is unlocking tremendous marketing upside, it has its limitations, and we all know it. You've all tested ChatGPT, you've all seen some limits. AI gets stronger when there is actual human interaction to react to outputs, to provide feedback and train the algorithm. So any content produced by AI or insights about that content requires a critical eye. So take time to think about how to interpret the data and how to best use these insights. An AI tool found, for example, for a French alcohol brand we've been working with, that the elements that were driving performances for their campaigns were images of the sea and the sun. So when our analysts dug deeper into this, they realized that it was in fact outdoor settings that were driving performances, because the drink is actually enjoyed better in the summer outside. So AI gets better, faster when humans are in the loop. So take time to think about how you are going to use this data and how you are going to apply it to future campaigns. Last advice, but not least, move carefully, but move fast. So as Andrew was saying, the important is to start testing. And once you get access to data and insights on your brand, it's true that you will be tempted to try to get to the perfect final result by combining all your different findings at once. So one question I often get from marketers after presenting insights for the first time is, oh, does that mean that from now on, all my ads on Meta need to have a man smiling, handling a bottle, and a reggae song playing in the back? The answer is, of course, no. No, because your audience will get bored with seeing the same ad, the storytelling will be inconsistent, and of course, their interest will change and evolve with time. So embrace the changes, test new solutions to keep a competitive advantage, but always keep an eye on the final result and your brand image. Make sure your teams have a test and learn approach while having the tools to check that they are systematically adhering to brand guidelines and ensure brand recognition and alignment. So to conclude, no tool could ever replace human creativity. It will always be the key to drive performance, but AI will definitely help your teams to optimize the concept and take the objective decisions. Thank you for your attention today, and now we have some time for Q&As.
Thank you, Jennifer. We have actually had a couple of questions that have come through. The first one that came through, I guess, Anthony, maybe you're or even Jeremiah, probably either of you could answer this. I know Andrew's left now. But what are the best AI products for using other than ChatGPT and Playground AI, in your opinion?
I would say, as Andrew was saying, at this stage, you should test all of the tools that are out there. So Adobe Firefly, Midjourney, definitely playing with ChatGPT is very interesting because even though it is not visual, the fact, what does matter is understanding how this whole prompting thing works. You need to understand what is a prompt, how to create the right prompt that will deliver the right outcome for you. And it's not that straightforward. So especially when you will think in terms of a marketing context. So yeah, we're not in generative AI, but we are very fan of the topic, and we love to see people experimenting. Andrew was saying, like, they are testing everything to a point where they want to see where it breaks. That's kind of the funny side of it. The other side of it that he was mentioning is that there are tons of aspects that they need to pay attention to, like the legal aspect, for instance.
Yeah, the ethical side,
you
yeah.
are a large company, clearly you need to have your legal team also looking at how this works, and if this will be applicable for you, what are the legal implications. So it's more it's less of the what tool you use, it's more when you use it, when do you start using it, and the message is definitely now, and with what mindset. And this mindset of test and learning is definitely the right one.
Yeah. And then we've just actually had another question that's just come through. So from a media planning perspective, do you think AI could pose as a threat?
So we definitely do not see it as a threat. We actually are very optimistic about what AI will bring, because there is still a lot of wastage. Whether it's in the amount of creative that is being built and not used, or not properly used, or not properly built. I would say same in media planning. Having said that, AI has been driving a lot of the media planning for years now. If whether it's within Google, Amazon, or Meta, a lot of the ad serving and the delivery of your campaigns is very much like part of the decision making is AI driven. Even if it wasn't written everywhere that it is AI driven, it was very much AI driven for a while. But we certainly expect these tools to improve, and so you clearly will see even less wastage and definitely better performance.
And we had our virtual programmatic day back in May, and one of the topics was around AI, and it's more specifically in programmatic. But a lot of what kind of came out of that was that it actually just helps remove some of that heavy lifting, so that then actually you're just able to do your job, I guess, better, or with more time to your hands and things. So actually, it kind of comes as a support rather than a threat.
Really, and just if I may add one thing that is really complicated is when you run media for a company that operates in hundreds of markets, across 40 brands. That's a lot of work. So these people clearly see AI as a very helpful co-pilot.
Yeah. Great. And then we just had one more question. Unless anyone else has any other questions in the audience, feel free to pop it in the chat box. We were actually just talking about it before we started the webinar today, but AI has become a pretty hot topic. I think it was talked about all over Cannes last week for those that were able to go. And it's, there's conversations that keep evolving around it. Do you think people should be paying attention to it now and kind of acting now, or do you think it's better to wait until the dust of the conversation settles a bit, there's more best practices around, and then people are able to sort of follow those clear best practices? What would kind of your advice be there?
Well, I think you can guess my answer, but what we see has changed. I was in Cannes last year with Vidmob, and we were already actively advocating for people to start using the tool like ours, start looking at the results, do some testing so that you understand the potential. And a lot of these conversations last year were probably stayed on the Cannes beach or sets, but we never materialized. This year, we see a very big difference where people really start willing to experiment and to test. So that's the shift we are seeing today. If you don't start experimenting now, you're going to fall behind big time. Like Andrew and his teams have been using tools like for more than 2 years now. So if you still have and onboarding and starting takes time. Like it will take a few weeks to get started, get enough people in your company using it, then give feedback. Then we're talking several weeks. Then you're already at the end of 2023 with few learnings, versus other companies that are already thinking about how can I scale these tools and turn that into a competitive advantage. So clearly, I expect to see in the next 3 months more companies being public in how they are integrating tools like Vidmob in their marketing toolkit. For real, not as a gimmick, not as a new shiny object, but truly to drive growth and ROI.
We'll look forward to seeing how that all evolves and plays out. Well, we are actually fast out of time today, so thank you all so much for taking us through that. That was really interesting. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have recorded this session, so we'll make sure we share a copy with everybody that joined today and registered, so you can watch in your own time. And as always, if you've got any questions for us or for Vidmob, feel free to reach out, and we'd be happy to connect you and carry on the conversations beyond the event. But otherwise, thank you again for all joining us, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank
you. Thanks very much.